And we have returned, and so has our dear friend Macho Man. I need to fix that.
It's enough to get me to the boiling point!
Yes, the fact that that happened is actually enough to get me to the boiling point. Anyway, I'll explain what the deal with that is in a minute. But what we just heard was beginning from the Castlevania side of things of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate soundtrack. But anyway, as for what just happened there, something I ordered a while ago finally arrived this morning, and that is a Stream Deck. Is it going to be a worthwhile purchase? I have no idea. I was feeling silly and thought I'd blow some cash on something. It's been a while since I bought something streaming specific, so... so far it does look like a nifty little device. I mean, I can use it for shortcuts for a lot of things other than streaming. But, like, it's a lot... I've, at the very least, got the bare bones program for now, in that I can use it to start, stop the stream, start or stop recording, switch over the scenes, and the reason why that popped up is because I also have tied to it. The only thing I have tied to it that isn't just, like, utilitarian is I can turn on that video whenever I want now. Case in point. Just a push of a button, and then we got Macho Man. The only problem with that is it seems like when I first start up OBS, it'll automatically start playing. So I think I just need to set something in there so that it's toggled off until I press the button. But, hey, if I come across something frustrating, I don't have to wait very long to send for the man, at least. So there we are. But yeah, Stream Deck. Looks like an interesting device. Haven't really learned too much about what to use it for yet, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, we're going to dive back into some more Kenshi, because God help me, I started playing that again not too long ago. Started in an entirely new game, because that was a great idea. And, yeah, so I'm not going to be streaming that one, obviously. I'm probably going to go back to Boneshaw and his Redeemers. I really do need to get back to the robot I made at one point, so that him and Beep can prove themselves to be the most powerful combatants on the planet. Moon. We're technically on a moon, if you really want to get into the lore of it all. But, yeah, we'll get back to Boneshaw. However, before I begin that, something I do want to have a little chat about before I begin, and this... It occurs to me I kind of arbitrarily picked a Castlevania song, but it's actually kind of fitting considering one of the things I'm going to talk about. We recently watched 2 recently released movies. And I'm not going to go into like a stupid full in-depth review on either of them. I'm just going to give you some of my basic thoughts on it. And they're 2 wildly different movies. One of them, which ties into the Castlevania thing, is Nosferatu, the remake that came out on Christmas Day of all goddamn. And the second one is Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, which I believe I've mentioned both of these movies on stream as they were announced that they were coming out. We actually watched Wallace and Gromit last night. Nosferatu, we went to the theaters to see it last Saturday. Hello, Rolls. Welcome back to the stream. Hopefully you're having a lovely day and you're not snowed in too much. But yeah, anyway, so we went and we watched Nosferatu last Saturday. And we watched Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul last night. That's on Netflix. You could just, if you got an account, you can just go look that up. Oh, you're doing good? The roads are clear? That's good. Hopefully your road clearing is a hell of a lot better than ours is. So, yes, beer. It's a Saturday. I can drink however much I want. Within reason. Okay, so I guess I may as well start with Nosferatu first. If you've been here long enough, you're probably well aware that I will say you're pretty good there. It's only the massive 8+ inches that you have issues. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, we honestly haven't had, like, a really terrible snowfall ever since that one that shut the city down for a week, like, 4, almost 5 years ago now. No, 5! It is exactly 5 years ago, because it happened in late January in 2020. That's when that happened. Go figure. Okay, I'm derailing my train of thought again. That happens a lot these days, I've noticed. Yes, Nosferatu. I may as well start with that. So if you've been around the stream long enough, I've probably mentioned once or twice that Nosferatu, like the 1922 movie, is probably one of my favorite movies, if not my absolute favorite movie of all time. And, well, I suppose I should stop and say I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I mean, at the same time, I don't know how much I can possibly spoil a movie that at this point has been remade, I think, at least 3, maybe 4 times, because Werner Herzog put out a version of it in 1979. I think there was a I think there was a remake that was done starring Doug Jones as Count Orlok himself. It was filmed, I think, in 2016 or 2018, but it was only released on streaming a year ago or something like that. Was that you're all good with spoilers, but you're starting Titanic there shortly, so please don't spoil that one for me. Okay, I'll try to keep that. I'll try to keep that under wraps for you. You got to get up to it yourself. All you need to know is that it's a lovely trip that is marred by 1 or 2 technical difficulties. But yeah, so anyway, it's a movie that's been remade a few times. So there was that one, the Herzog one, the one I believe that stars Doug Jones, which I think was only recently released, despite the fact it was filmed years ago. And there's a sort of remake called Shadow of the Vampire that came out in 2000 or so, except it's a fictional account of filming the original movie, wherein Willem Dafoe plays Max Schreck, the actor who played Orlok, except he's actually a vampire. Haven't seen that one yet. I keep meaning to. Sounds like a fun time. So yes, never mind, this is a movie that's been done a couple of times over. The original movie came out over 100 years ago, and it's very loosely based, well, I mean, semi-loosely, based on a book that's been around since the 1800s. So, you know, spoilers? I don't know if that's too big of a deal. Anyway. So we saw the movie. Oh, you know the story, but you've only seen bits and pieces of the original? I mean, you know, it's one of those things that I think it's permeated pop culture to the point where even if you haven't seen it, you know it, you know? But, anyway. So, going into it, I realize I'm probably biased because I do love the original movie so much. I love the original movie to the point where I watch it at least once a year. Like every Halloween, at least, I usually try to watch it pretty close to Halloween. And I'm pretty sure the year it hit its 100th anniversary, I watched it at least 3 times, I think. Something like that. So, I'm admittedly biased. Like, I was going into it loving the original movie and was probably going to be fairly critical of it, but I actually shoved that aside and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to be as objective as I possibly can. And I was. To an extent. Because I have what I feel from all the discourse I've seen about this movie, an unpopular opinion. I didn't really like it that much. Which is not to say I hated it. I didn't hate the movie, no. I actually, like, if I was taking it in a vacuum wherein I had never seen the original, I'd be like, okay, it's a pretty good Dracula movie. Even though it's not actually Dracula, you know? But I, you know, have seen the original, so I know it's not technically Dracula. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I've heard nothing but praise for the movie. And, like, it's just been, like, wildly praised. I mean, I haven't heard anything overly bad about it from anybody. And, I don't know. I went to see it. I don't regret seeing it. It's still enjoyable enough on its own merits. But the longer I have to sit with it, the less I like it, if that makes sense. I just don't know. I don't even really know how to explain in words how I feel about it. Despite the fact me and Jen have been talking about it all week. It's just... Well, one thing I suppose I could say is that if you go into the original watching it, like the original movie, the 1922 one, I do still personally find some of the imagery in that movie kind of unsettling. And when you add on the layer that like, oh, this is a very old movie. Everyone who's worked on this is dead now. That kind of gives you like a weird little meta thing going on too. But I don't know. The original had some relatively campy moments, believe it or not. And I don't mean it's like unintentionally campy on account of the fact that, you know, it's such an old movie. Like, I feel like it was deliberately campy in parts. And I'm of the opinion that a good horror movie has a little bit of camp in it because it helps contrast the scary shit that happens. I don't know. That's just what I feel like. And there wasn't any of that in the new one, because I think a good explanation of this is the character of Thomas Hutter, who, if you're familiar with the story of Dracula, he's essentially Thomas Harker. I think Thomas was his name. Hutter, Harker, whatever, anyway. In the new one, he's played by this guy, Nicholas Hoult, who I love Nicholas Hoult. Great actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in Warm Bodies, Fury Road, Renfield, ironically enough. He played the Renfield character in the really absurd Renfield movie with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. And, see, in the original, Hutter kind of comes off as this overly exuberant, almost to a creepy degree, optimistic, pretty dense guy. And to me, that really plays up how he goes so long without noticing how horribly wrong everything that's happening to him is. And it also kind of, like, explains a bit more beyond just, like, the values of the time, why he doesn't listen to his wife's warnings. Because he's like, oh no, this'll be fine, I'll pop down to this creepy castle in the land of thieves and phantoms, as they call it in the original movie. We're gonna get a pile of money out of it, and we're gonna be set up for the rest of our lives. That's essentially the vibe that he gives. In the new movie, he's deadly serious. He sees so many things that are red flags, way more than in the original. He wakes up in the middle of the night at one point and finds a bunch of Romani going through a ritual to kill another vampire. And he's like, that was just a dream, despite the fact that I'm clearly clothed, even though I went to bed and my boots are covered in mud, and everyone is gone the next day. It was like, that was just a dream, I'll be fine. That didn't happen in the original. He was just vaguely warned by the locals, and he just laughed it off. But anyway, I don't know. That's part of it. I feel like Hutter would have been... If he was still kind of the happy-go-lucky kind of dense fella that he was in the original, I would have bought it more. And Nicholas Hoult is good at playing that, so I don't know why he was given this particular way to go with it. What else? The movie seemed to try to focus a lot on Ellen and try, like, Hutter's wife, Ellen, and try to revolve it more around her, which is a good thing, because, I mean, she is essentially the main character aside from the vampire himself, but they didn't really double down on it as much as I feel like they should have. Because you get a little bit of backstory as to why she is so tied to the vampire. More than you got in the original. In the original, all you really got is the fact that she seems like she's vaguely psychic, and she has some sort of connection to him, like the vampire, Orlok himself, that isn't really explained. Again, without going into too much spoilers, and I know this isn't the way they wanted it to track, but to me, the way they explain her connection to Orlok in the new movie, it almost comes off as she's to blame for him doing all of this, which seems like a weird track to take. Which, you know, I didn't know how I felt about that. Maybe I was misinterpreting it. Again, this is just my opinion on the movie. Which is apparently a bit of an oddball opinion on the movie that I've seen. And the other thing, too, and I haven't actually seen anything else that she's in, although Jen has, and she wasn't a fan. Ellen is played by Lily Rose Depp in this movie. I wasn't really overly impressed by her acting in it. I mean, it wasn't awful, but there was a lot of weird shit they did with her, I guess. That might be down to a direction thing. And the one thing I do know, I feel like if I didn't know the behind-the-scenes stuff about this movie, I would have been more accepting of it, because originally, this movie, they were trying to make it for, I think, the last 10 years, and they only finally managed to get it out now. Originally, the character was supposed to be played by Anya Taylor-Joy. Funny that you got two different people with two different hyphen names, but, you know, whatever. I feel like I would have enjoyed the character more if it was played by her her because I do really like her as an actor. I don't know. That's just that. Maybe that's just me, but here we are. But again, I don't know if it's as much Rose Depp's fault for it, or if it's just like the direction she was given, because she does like a lot of weird contortionist crap throughout the course of the movie in a very odd way, and I don't know, it just didn't really land with me for some reason. Three people I did actually really like in it, though. Willem Dafoe was in it as the Van Helsing analog. I can't remember what the character's name was in the original. It wasn't Severs. It was... No, Severs was the guy who ran the asylum. God, I forgot his name last time I was thinking about this, too. He's not named the same in the new movie, whatever he is, but he's like this sort of like mystic scholar kind of dude. Dafoe was great, but Dafoe was always great. I can't remember the name of the guy who plays Knock, the Renfield analog in this version of it, but he is magnificently unhinged. Like, he plays it up really well. Don't think Willem Dafoe has ever made a bad movie. Wait, yes he has. Speed 2, Cruise Control. I mean, there's a difference between making a bad movie and being bad in a bad movie, because you can still have some real good roles, real good things in a bad movie, you know? But yeah, so the guy who played Knock, Willem Dafoe as the Van Helsing analog, and honestly, Bill Skarsgård as Orlok himself to a degree. Because I think this really does tie into the main problem I have. I was afraid that I was afraid they were going to go this route with the new movie. Because this is my fear always whenever they remake movies, and especially horror movies. And this was very prevalent in the mid-2000s, and I can rhyme off a few examples. Black Christmas, the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, there were a few other things too that they did around the same time. And the concern I had is there's always two things that happen whenever a horror movie is remade. Number one, they put in a lot of weird sex stuff. Number two, they overly explain the villain. Black Christmas is a great example, and this is a bit of a tangent now, but the original Black Christmas that came out in the 70s, none of the main characters even really know that Billy, I say quote unquote because I don't even know if they really confirmed that's the guy's name, the killer is in the house. They don't know who he is. They don't even know he's the reason why everyone is getting picked off. He's just there. He just appears, and everyone is terrified of him, even though they don't really know who he is or why he's there. Ooh, pardon me. In the Black Christmas movie that came out in the mid-2000s, which after watching it again last year, I did like better than the first go-round, though I still have issues with it, they thoroughly explain what Billy's deal is. You know his entire history from the day of birth to the time you get to the end of the movie. Which, to me, takes out a lot of the fear as to why he was there in the first place, you know? Because he's just this unknowable lunatic who just shows up one night and starts killing people. And they don't really delve too much into Orlok's backstory in the movie, but they have a really awkward moment in the middle of the movie where Hutter is found by a bunch of nuns, and the head nun just explains Orlok's whole deal to him before he leaves, unprompted. This is after they perform an exorcism on him, apparently. I don't know, again, not something that was in the original. So I don't know, I was like, I don't like when they overly explain stuff, especially for a character like Orlok, because Orlok worked fairly well for me in the original in such a manner that, like, he was just living alone in that castle for so long, because the implication is everything around him dies eventually. Like, he doesn't need to actively kill anything. He just rots the area around him. To the point where he's only vaguely alluded to by anybody. As opposed to, in this one, where apparently this one nun in a convent not too far from his castle apparently knows his entire life story. Go figure. So yeah, I wasn't too big of a fan of that. And as for the weird sex stuff, yeah, it was really weird. like, I do not view Orlok as being a sexual creature, but they really, really drilled down on that being the case in this, despite the fact they made him look even more like a rotting corpse in this movie. I don't know. It's pretty strange. But then again, the director of this movie, Robert Eggers, I've only seen one other of his movies, The Witch, and that really also delves into the weird horror sex stuff, so I think that's just kind of his thing. Which, hey, you know, whatever. I can get it. It seems to have served him well, but it's not for me. I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing. And, God, I don't know. The movie was well shot, but in certain instances it just seemed like it was too dark. And I don't mean like, oh no, it was so dark and creepy. I mean, it was like dark. It was really, really dark. And, I mean, the original was dark too, but only in like a sort of a decorative way, I guess is the best way to put it, because obviously they didn't have the same lighting tricks in 1922 as they do now. So, like, they just fiddled with the negatives to make it look like it was night. So you've got like a really rich contrast between the blacks and the whites in the film coloring in the original, you know, so stuff stands out and you can play around with shadows an awful lot. Whereas there were a lot of times in this particular movie that I could not really even see what was happening because it was that dark. And I get why they were going that route. I just, you know, maybe it was me. Maybe I'm just going, well, I am going blind, let's be real. But GTA 4 over Christmas had to turn the brightness up. Your eyes ain't what they used to be. Yeah. I feel like that's actually a good example, too. As much as I love GTA 4, there's not a lot of vibrancy in that game, which was an intentional purpose. Intentionally done, I'm sure, but runs into the same issue. It's kind of hard to see what's happening. But yeah, no. I don't really know where else to go from there beyond the fact that I just wasn't a big fan. Like, I don't regret seeing it. I'm glad I saw it in theaters. I don't think I've got any desire to watch it again. Maybe I'll watch it at least one more time later on just to really consolidate that my opinion of it is still the same, but I don't know, it didn't really leave that great of an impression on me. And like I said, I kind of feel like a jerk for saying that because I haven't really heard much of anybody else complain about it. And people kept saying about how scary it was. I didn't find it overly scary at all. Like, the two things that really startled me, and I use the word startle specifically, is that they actually did throw a few jump scares in there. They're not, like, overly prevalent, but they're there. And there's a lot of really disgusting shit happens. And, like, being startled and disgusted is not the same as being afraid. Oh, that's how you feel about Independence Day 2? The original is gun to your head favorite movie pick, and the sequel, you saw the sequel in theaters, watch it once since, still don't care for it. Yeah, you know? And maybe this is also a remake / unnecessary sequel problem too, because a lot of times I find that you don't really need to do that. I don't know. But, yeah, no, there was a lot of stuff that was just simply startling or disgusting, and to me, that's not the same as being afraid. Like that doesn't really give me a palpable sense of dread. It's just, oh no, he just immediately sprung to life. Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know. It's, again, I feel bad for saying I didn't like it, but I honestly didn't really like it. Once again, clarify, didn't hate. Didn't really like, though. So, you know, whatever. Maybe my opinion will change on it if I watch the movie again. I'll give you an update when that happens, but right now, though, it's not going to replace the original for me. Like, I can go back and watch that anytime. Hell, I could turn that on right now. And because it's in the public domain, I could probably just put it on right now while I'm streaming. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just meh. It was a whole pile of meh for me. However, the other movie we watched, like I said, which we only watched last night, was Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, and that is the exact opposite. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It was absolutely joyful to watch. I don't really have too much to say about it beyond the fact that if you're a fan of that style of cartoon, or that like style of weird kind of at times subtle, at times really slapsticky British humor, then fuck it, yeah, watch it. If you're, not familiar, Wallace and Gromit is this long-running series of stop-motion animation. They did a bunch of shorts. There's been a couple of feature-length movies. Vengeance Most Foul is very specifically a direct sequel to one of my favorite shorts, which is The Wrong Trousers, that came out in 92, I want to say it is. And am I biased in this instance because the main character, the central antagonist of Wrong Trousers and now this movie, is a criminal mastermind penguin? Yeah, I'm a little biased. I love Feathers McGraw, which is his name, by the way. But I don't know, it was wonderfully animated, it was very funny, and it was a joy watching every minute of it. So if you've got Netflix and you got like an hour and a half to kill, throw it on. You might need to watch Wrong Trousers first, which unfortunately is not on Netflix, but you don't really need to watch that to know what's happening, because they give you a recap of that short at the beginning of the movie anyway. And I don't know, I loved it. It was so fun. It was so good. I feel like I would have enjoyed the hell out of that if I saw that in theaters, but it was certainly fine watching it here. But, God, I'm trying to think of what else to say about that beyond the fact that I loved it. I don't know. The fact that Feathers McGraw has been locked up for life in a zoo? No, that was how the original short ended, but they continue on with that. That's where he's been this whole time. And it's treated like a maximum security prison, but he is just a penguin in a zoo. And he's like masterminding his revenge and a prison break from here. It's actually kind of funny because they reference the Shawshank Redemption at some point, and that is also a movie I rewatched not too long ago. That one still holds up. Shawshank Redemption's still a great film. But yeah, no. I suppose the bottom line here, I do love that I spent nearly half an hour rambling about my incoherent thoughts about Nosferatu. And talking about Wallace and Gromit was just simply 5 minutes of, I loved it, you should watch it. That's about it, But yeah, definitely watch that movie. I'm not going to say don't watch Nosferatu. I would just say probably watch it. I don't even know if I should say you should watch the original first. Because maybe it's better to watch the new one and then watch the original if you haven't already seen it, and then make your judgments there. Because again, I am coming at it from the other side, and I was very biased, so who knows. Hello. I am going to say that's pronounced exotic or exotic. Thank you for stopping by the stream. Hopefully you're having a lovely day. You just missed me rambling about a couple of movies. Which, I'm actually going to start playing video games now. But yeah, anyway, like I said, that is essentially my thoughts on those two movies. Take it or leave it. It's just my opinion. Take it as whatever you will.